dress. Let no soldier go with condos unless passed by a non-commissioned officer. Let no persons of respectable appearance enter the barracks and those having passage.
Thank you.
Idlers or suspicious persons enter the fort or order about the gate. Let no barrack bedding or furniture be taken out unless passed by one of the barracks department. Let no soldier go out of the fort before morning parade. Unless no duty or passed by a non-commissioned officer.
Henry, they're just changing the sentry there. So that has a list of all the programs that are
outside of the gate.
there will be an English article shortly from just underneath the garrison.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Have a great day, folks.
Thank you. Turn to the guard to all our parties, all general officers, commanding officers, the officer of the day when visiting the guard. After giving the word, guard turn out, stand to your front and pay compliment with the guard. After tattoo, challenge to a loud voice, all persons approach your post. Pass around the word also every half hour to the next post. Commencing with the sentry at the guard room door. Who and word comes around to him again will call out. All's well! All around! Sentries, pass! Shoulder arms! Hook! Pass together. Yo, let's get sentry. March your beat. Sentries, go to center. Quick, march. Close grabbing. Come on, get it.
What a view, eh?
Yeah, it's nice.
My God. He said the English guided tour under the garrison sign.
Sentry at the advanced battery. Here are your orders and instructions. Maintain a watchful eye towards the water free. Foreign ships are unusual craft. In case of fire, any unusual occurrence will alarm the guard. Hail compliment to the smart soldier style to all persons authorized by regulations to receive them. And stand at attention whenever the sergeant major passes your post. Turn up the guard to all our parties, all general officers, commanding officers, the officer of the day when visiting the guard. After giving the word, guard turn out, stand to your front and pay compliment with the guard. After step two, challenge a loud voice, all persons approach your post. Pass around the word. Feel free to raise your hand. All well, all around. Sentry,
I can.
pass.
If you have any questions that I cannot answer, which is highly unlikely, but if you ask me what kinds of ordnance and how much they weigh, things we fire out of the cannon, I may not necessarily know all 15 ordnance. You can always ask, there will always be someone in that black door you see over there that will have access to...
You know what that's very sentry much to be. Sentry, at the center, quick, march, will.
But just in case. Also, if you have any questions or comments after the tour or about the tour, you can also leave those with whoever will be in the room with the black door. Okay, so welcome everyone to Fort Henry. We're going to start our tour. We're heading down towards the water, and we'll talk a little bit about the fort as we go along from place to place. So, does anybody know when Fort Henry was built? 18-something. That's correct. Yes. Right on. Started construction in 1832, finished construction in 1837. Now, why did we build Fort Henry? Who are we protecting ourselves from?
Americans.
Yes. The United States, absolutely. Now, this is actually an incredibly expensive fort. It's the most costly fortification west of Quebec City. How many of you have been to Quebec City? Have you all been to the Quebec Citadel?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. So extremely large, extremely fancy, extremely expensive as well. Lots of, it's a star-shaped fort because those are the most advanced fort of their kind. This is a much simpler fort. This one's cheaper, but still by far way more expensive than any other fort that's west of here by a long shot. Every other fort that's west of here, like forts in Edmonton and York, also known as Toronto, are glorified palisade walls with little buildings in them. They're not much of a fort. This is a fort. So, does anybody know why we specifically built this fort at this location? And I'm not talking about, you know, it's on top of a hill, yeah, that's super. But why this spot? What's special about this area? Yes?
It's for the, it's to sink the boats.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, but why? What's special about this part of Lake Ontario?
It used to be the capital of Canada.
Well, Kingston was originally supposed to be the capital of Canada, but it wasn't at that time. Canada did not become a country until 1867. As I said, this fort was built in 1837. And believe it or not, the fort was the reason for the fort's construction had nothing to do with the city of Kingston and the people there. We weren't building this fort to protect people. We were building it to protect another piece of infrastructure that the British military spent a ton of money on. The Rideau Canal, exactly, right. So if you look out here, you can step up. So right in front of us, we have what's called Navy Bay, right in front of us. Then we have the Royal Military College. It's called Navy Bay because the naval dockyards for the Great Lakes used to be over there. Just past the Royal Military College, which is directly in front of us, all those copper roofs. On the other side of that, we have the terminus, the end of the Rideau Canal. And that's why Fort Henry was built here, because the Rideau Canal cost the British military a fortune. Now, why did they spend so much money on the Rideau Canal when they already have a direct waterway from here to the Atlantic Ocean, being the St. Lawrence? Why did they have to build another one? Anyone know?
Connect Montreal and Kingston.
Montreal and Kingston are already connected with the St. Lawrence. But why did they build this detour from St.
Ottawa?
Lawrence? Well, Ottawa wasn't actually built till they built the Rideau Canal. Ottawa was a byproduct of the Rideau Canal. So the reason for it is because there's a stretch of the St. Lawrence Seaway that is quite narrow, and that the British colony of Canada, or Upper Canada, Lower Canada, share a border with the Americans. It's very close. So close that if the Americans had put a whole bunch of artillery pieces on their side of the water, they could blast every ship coming down that waterway out the water, sink them all. So that's a big problem because how else are the British going to get reinforcements, information, and supplies of any sort to this whole area if they don't have the St. Lawrence Seaway? See, luckily for the Americans, all their military infrastructure is located on this continent, whereas the British, all their stuff is located in England. So they needed another way to make sure that they could keep this whole area, everything west of here. And you guys know how large this colony is, I hope you do, because it's pretty big, right? It became the second largest country in the world, right? It's a vast amount of land. If there's a cutoff at the St. Lawrence Seaway, they lose access to everything west of it. So they needed another way to get around that St. Lawrence path, or that's narrow path to St. Lawrence. So they built the Rideau Canal. It cost an extremely large sum of money and went way over budget, which is why Fort Henry and the fortifications around Kingston had to be scaled back significantly. So originally were supposed to be a whole bunch of towers and mini forts all over this area. What they had to do was extend. Actually, they built Fort Henry a little bit larger than it was supposed to be, and that was pretty much it. They actually had these 4 towers that you can see sort of. There's the 2 red towers over there. There's one way off in the distance. You can see first in the glimpse right behind that tree. There's also a silver one that's in the canal. Those were added later in 1848. We were built to extend the convention a little bit. At the height of tensions between the Americans and the British, we had the there was also a place called the Market Battery that was also and they all had cannons on top of them. So this whole area right here that we're in right now is called the Advanced Battery. It's called the Advanced Battery because we are in advance of the main part of the fort. This is like the addition to the fort. And a battery because any grouping of 2 or more artillery pieces is referred to as a battery. So there would have been actually 9 artillery pieces all around here. 8 of them would have been 32-pound smooth-bore muzzle-loading guns, and one of them would have been a 56-pound smooth-bore muzzle-loading gun. How heavy are the solid shot that we fire out of the 32-pound smooth-bore muzzle-loading guns?
10,
I'll give you a clue. It's in the title.
32.
32 pounds, there you go. The gun doesn't weigh 32 pounds, it's significantly heavier, more heavy than that. But the iron balls that they do fire are 32 pounds. The one in the middle, however, would fire a 56-pound solid iron ball. And these guns can actually fire as far as the eye can see. So everything you can see, every windmill, every island, we can actually fire as far as those things are. So if there was ever a ship that would come this way, the second we could see it, we could hit it and sink it. So this was actually a pretty substantial fortification. And for this reason, we don't have a whole lot of cannons actually pointing out towards the water. because no sized American fleet would be able to come in within range to fire upon us before we would sink their ships. So what that means is that if there was going to be an attacking American force, they weren't going to attack us head on from the water because that would be suicide. So what they would most likely do is land farther east or west and come and try to attack us from the rear. So that's why most of the cannons, guns as they're called, are actually pointing towards our own territory, which is kind of weird, right? Usually point them towards the enemy territory, but in this case it actually makes more sense to point them north. So that's where we're going to head right now, towards the main part of the fort. This is where everything happens and whatnot. All the fun stuff, all the training, the eating, the sleeping, all that takes place in the lower part of the fort. We wouldn't really be out here too much. There would be some sentries here, but the infantry would mostly be down there. The artillery, however, which I'm in, I'm a gunner, would be practicing on those cannons every so often, because that's our job. So, we're heading now down to the lower part of the fort. By the way, at 3 o'clock you can see me and some other people in the artillery fire off one of the cannons, so be sure to check that out during the garrison parade. It'll be lots of fun. We make things go boom, it's loud, it's fun. So be